what is polycentric missiology and why does it matter? Because I think it does.
Absolutely. Thank you. To break it down, poly just means many, right? Like a polygon or polymath. So many centers. So missions used to be from the West to the rest, but now it is from everyone to everywhere. And this is a game changer for Christianity. This is what they call a Copernican revolution, because Copernicus was the guy who said that it is not the sun that revolves around.
Oh, that's what we were talking about earlier, right? I messed that up. I said Copernicus or Galileo. Okay, Copernicus, I know.
Well, but Galileo popularized it, yes. So both of them were
both.
But the Copernican revolution is when, instead of the sun revolving around the earth, you realize the earth revolves around the sun. And this flips everything on its head.
Yeah.
So the study of world Christianity is the idea that the center of gravity of Christianity has shifted from the West to the non-Western world. But non-Western is a little bit derogatory because people don't like you to be defined by what they're not. So the preferred terms would be two-thirds world or majority world, because this refers to the fact that the majority or two-thirds of the world's population lives in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. But the UN is a more secular term. They use the term global south. I like majority world or two-thirds world better because it includes Asia. Global south is Latin America and Africa, and it's more of an economic term to talk about developing countries, but Asia is also included in this mix. So I feel like I prefer that. But when the center of gravity of Christianity shifted from the West to the majority world, this was a game changer for mission, because not only did the majority of missionaries they don't go from the West to the majority world anymore, but the majority world, they actually are coming to the West to do missions. So there's reverse missions. Another implication is that the power is no longer in the majority, or financial and political power, I should say. So, and in some ways, this harkens back to the first century, where Christians were a small minority, persecuted, oppressed, and yet they thrived. But when Christianity is married to power and money, it gets very dicey pretty quickly. Yeah. So I feel like there's some sense in more return to an authentic faith. And honestly, polycentrism was how Christianity was at the very beginning.
Yep.
Think about this. Where did Christianity start? Israel, which is in Asia. Okay. And then it spread through the Apostle Paul to Turkey, which is Asia Minor, right? So we're still in Asia. But then also in Acts chapter 8, you see the story of Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch. So Philip, not only, he goes to Samaria, is the area of the half-Jews, and then he meets an African, Ethiopian eunuch, who gets converted, and he brings it to Ethiopia. So, and according to legend, St. Thomas, who was one of the 12, doubting Thomas, but when he said, Jesus, I won't believe it until I touch the holes in your feet and sides, and then he says, my Lord, my God. So apparently, according to legend, he was so transformed by that encounter that he took the gospel further than anyone else. He sailed down the Persian Gulf and went all the way to the Southwest India, which is today known as Kerala. And so India has had the gospel since the first century. Turkey has had the gospel since the first century. Ethiopia has had the gospel since the first century. And then finally, the Apostle Paul goes to Greece, and Europe was the last of those three continents to receive it. And he didn't even want to go, but then he got the vision of the man from Macedonia who's saying, come over and help us. And then the Holy Spirit forbade him from going back to Asia. And Paul's like, oh gosh, okay, fine. I'll go talk to those Europeans, right? And the first person he converts when he's in Europe is in Philippi. It's Lydia. It's a woman, okay? She's the first European convert. So anyway, I'm going to say this whole thing about women later, because this is also the future of the majority world church, is they're largely female. But you have this polycentrism that's in the ancient world. We think about Europe as always being the center of the faith, and I'm like, dude, India, Turkey, Ethiopia have been Christian since the 1st century, and earlier than Europe, right? And then even when it did go to Europe, it wasn't centered in Europe. In fact, the early church had 5 centers. There was Rome, and then there was Constantinople, which today is Istanbul, and it straddles 2 continents. It's Asia and Europe. And then you had Antioch, and then which is in modern day Turkey, and you have Jerusalem, which is in Israel, and then you have Alexandria, which is in Egypt. So if you look at this, the early church had 5 centers, 1 in Europe, 1 in Eurasia, 2 in Asia, and 1 in Africa. Okay, it is not Western centric. It is tricontinental, even from the beginning. And so I think this is pretty amazing. So in a sense, polycentrism is not actually a new thing. It's actually a return to the original faith. And so this Europeanization and Westernization of Christianity was actually an aberrance for about 1,000 years.